Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Sarasate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Another phone. This one.
We've reached Prabhandar, the home of Sudama Vipra, and also the birthplace of Mahatma Gandhi. So we'll hear about both of these personalities while we're here. During the day, we're going to be visiting 3 places and end up in the 4th place. We're going to next visit the cave of Jambavan, and then we'll visit a very prominent and famous, important deity of Lord Shiva, Somnath. This temple that we see is new. In the early 1900s, 1902 through 1907, it was built. Prior to the current situation, in the 12th and 13th century, there was some other structure here. And subsequently, this very nice temple and all the gardens and everything seem nicely maintained also. In honor of Krishna's very dear friend, as we see from this carving here, Krishna embracing his dear friend Sudama. Jiva Goswami gives 2 meanings of the word Sudama, or the name Sudama. Sudama means glorious. And Jiva Goswami also says it's a combination of 2 words, Shushta and Dadati, or one who gives liberally. What did Sudama have to give, liberally or otherwise? But that was his name even from childhood. Many people know, you probably saw on the roadside, Prabhandar. It had a prior name, historically. Pora Velakul. The 10th century. Pora Velakur. And some people just call it Sudamapur. On the altar, Sudama's in the middle. His wife Sushila is to his left, our right. And then there's the altar of Krishna. This exchange between Krishna and Sudama is glorified in Vaishnava literature again and again and again. I'll make some reference. One is a poem or a verse composed by Rupa Goswami in his Padyavali. Padyavali is a compilation of many, many verses. And in this verse, the essence of the verse is Krishna's not attracted by anything but the love of his devotee. He's not attracted by birth or material opulence or any position or some ability or something like that. He's not attracted. And the Padyavali verse says, what great qualification did Gajendra have? Gajendra the elephant. What school did he graduate from? Or the maturity of Dhruva Maharaj, 5-year-old boy. Or Sudama, what wealth did he have? What social status did Vidura have? On the other hand, Ugrasena, highly qualified by his birth, is that what Krishna was attracted to? No. Krishna is not attracted by material qualities, Krishna is attracted by devotion. Then another reference, this is from Chaitanya Bhagavat, the first of the biographies of Lord Chaitanya's life, describing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and what was appealing to him or attractive to him or invoked his love. And similar idea, making reference to Sudama. It says even if Krishna is thirsty, he won't even accept water from someone who is not a devotee, although the water is presented in a fine crystal cup embedded with jewels. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted water from the iron pot, broken iron pot of his dear devotee. Kolavechar Shridhar. And even if not, and that was even without being offered it, he snatched the iron pot. And Chaitanya Bhagavat goes on saying, and similarly, what was the value of the flat rice offered by Sudama? He was so embarrassed that he didn't even offer it to Krishna, and Krishna snatched it and ate it anyways. So what is it that Krishna wants? What is it that he will accept? He accepts the love and devotion with which something is offered, not simply the opulence of that something. Krishna even, Chaitanya Bhagavat goes on, Krishna even accepts the remnants of his devotees and gives the example when Durvasa Muni was visiting and all there was left was a scrap of some vegetable in the bottom of Draupadi's pot. Krishna came and accepted that and was fully satisfied. So that's nice. That's Krishna's nature. He is fully satisfied with however insignificant something may be if offered with love. And however opulent something may be, he's not interested in that something if it's not offered with love. In Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made a commentary on all the verses of Chaitanya Bhagavat, and he simply amplifies that very same message. Other references, Garga Samhita, Krishna Samhita, other verses from Padyavali. The personality of Sudama represents different things. Certainly his love for Krishna, but perhaps most outstanding is his qualification of having no material attraction. So Bhaktisiddhanta describes that his quality of akinchana. And there's different types of akinchanas. Akinchana means having no material shelter. So akinchana may mean a renunciate. But in the case of Sudama, he wasn't a renunciate, he was a householder. Or other householders that may have vast opulence, but have no attraction for that vast opulence other than it being utilized in service to Krishna. Our acharyas commonly refer to Prahlad, but there's others. Yudhishthira, and outstanding, his opulence surpassed, according to Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, it surpassed the opulence of the residents of heaven. The opulence of Ambarish Maharaj surpassed, not rivaled, but surpassed the opulence of the opulence of Vaikuntha surpasses the opulence of the heavenly realm. And that was the opulence of Maharaj Ambarish. So Sudama was on the other end, something very similar to Kolavechar Sridhar in Gaura's Lila, where he had nothing, or almost nothing. His clothes had more holes than cloth, and his thatched roof had more holes than straw. He's just pitifully poor by external sense. But Mahaprabhu, when he came, said, I know that you're hoarding a big treasure, you just have it hidden somewhere, and I'm going to disclose it to the world, but I'll do that later. Now, give me some of your banana leaves. And I'm a Brahmin, you should give them to me for nothing. But if you insist, I'll only pay a fair price, bargaining with the Vaishya Sudama, or Kolavechar, Sridhar. With such love, Lord Chaitanya daily visited Kolavechar Sridhar. And with such love, Krishna has feelings for those that want only him, whether they have opulence or have no opulence. Whether they're disgusted with material, the risk of having opulence that disturbs the mind and makes one materialistic, or one has those things and remains undisturbed. That's the position of akinchana. We know from Queen Kunti's prayers, twice is such an important concept or understanding. Twice she says, persons that are not akinchanas cannot feelingly pray, but rather their feelings are going to their hopes for prosperity. So even if they're doing something that's in relation to God, they're hoping for material prosperity in some form or fashion or combination. So they can't feelingly call out. The pastime of Sudama and Krishna comes in the 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 80. Chapter 80 follows chapter 79. And chapter 79 is kind of a standalone chapter, just focusing on Balaram. So the Lila of Balaram are the focus of 79. And glorification after glorification and wonderful pastimes, one after the next. Requested by Brahmanas, Krishna kills Balvala, the demon. The Kurukshetra battle is soon to begin. Balaram, as Krishna said, he won't take part. Balaram says he won't take part. But Krishna performs the service as Arjun's chariot driver while Balaram goes on pilgrimage. The encounter with, while on pilgrimage, with Romaharshi and Sutta reciting the scriptures, the Puranas, without honoring the Supreme Lord Balaram. So he kusagrasses him, finish him. Balaram then hears about, during the Kurukshetra battle, towards the very end of the 18 days, battle between Bhima and Duryodhana. Balaram having been the teacher of both, Balaram having this very puzzling, special affection for Duryodhana. He appeals to them both. Don't engage in this battle with one another. They both decline. Very unhappy with them both, Balaram departs. Another situation arises where Balaram gives instructions to yajnik brahmanas, the real purpose of Vedic sacrifice, to satisfy the Supreme Lord. So it's just a string of verses, one after a glorification after the next glorification. And the chapter ends with very important message that just is reverberating throughout the next chapter about Sudama. Maharaj Parikshit, hearing all this from Shukadeva Goswami, says, what person, after hearing these wonderful pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Balaram, who is unlimited and glorious and all-powerful, who regularly hears them, naturally develops this qualification of feeling completely full and satisfied and completely detached. So he basically says, tell more, speak more, such katha, because it has an effect on the heart. The spiritual happiness of the heart swells, and the eagerness to hear more, not just the eagerness of the feeling of happiness and contentedness within, but the happiness of the ear and the heart, just to hear the glorification of the Supreme Lord. It's like water in a desert. And then with that happiness within, then detachment from all the rest. The pain, the pinching in the heart that comes from hankering for material happiness that one doesn't have, or the expectation for happiness that doesn't happen and the frustration as a result. And all of the other varieties of misery in between. All of that is it just fades into inconsequential. One may go on doing one's duties, but that expectation of happiness through senses, meeting sense object, and oh, it's going to be nice, just dissipates. These are natural qualifications, and they're specific qualifications of Sudama. The question, the way the question is phrased, prompts Shukadeva Goswami to speak about Sudama, because he had these two qualifications. He was highly learned Brahmana, and he was not only detached, he was disgusted with material opulence and the consequence that material opulence often plays in the lives of even good devotees. So there's lots of commentary on this topic because it's the foundational message that we're to receive from hearing this. So it's spoken of again at the end, but in the beginning it's volumes of commentary. Just touch on a little bit. The two terms is Vishesha, Gya. Gya means to know. And Vishesha indicates the essence of life. One will not know the essence of life unless one receives through transcendental sources the essence of life. In other words, how do you go from animal life to human life? Human life meaning pursuing transcendence, pursuing self-realization, pursuing life's goal. One will not know life's goal. One won't have a clue. One will be, however polished, essentially an animal, doing animal activities in a less than polished or medium polished or more polished way. Whew. Prabhupada liked to speak about that topic, and he was really, fierce about it. Animal life. Why are they not happy? Because they're living animal life. They do not know. Nate vidu svarta katimi Vishnu, Prahlad says to Hiranyakashipu. What's the best thing you've learned? And his answer was, Nate vidu svarta katimi Vishnu. People who are in this polished animal, they don't have a clue what's the best thing of life. He doesn't say what it is. He just says, such people aren't going to be able to understand what the best thing. Because they don't know the first thing. Vishesha Gya. This is the result of, according to Maharaj Parikshit, having heard extensively, so many days and nights non-stop, just hearing from Shukadev Goswami. His consciousness was, this is 10th canto, feeling so completely full inside. And Vishana means not having really, it's a strong word, it means morose. Thinking about sense gratification, Munacharya says, I spit on the thought. In his case, I feel really sad for those who live their life steeped in hopes for happiness through sense gratification. No expectation for happiness from such things was the position of Maharaj Parikshit and was the position of Sudama. So those two terms, they're two very important qualifications for progressing in spiritual life, and they come as a natural consequence of hearing and chanting, a life cultivating sadhana, bhakti, cultivating devotion for Krishna through hearing and chanting. Way back in Canto 1, Chapter 2, it's the same principle is expressed. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Janiyati Ashu Vairagya, detachment, Jnanam Cha, Yad Ahaitukam, causelessly, knowledge and detachment arise from Bhakti Yoga unto Vasudeva, devotional service to Krishna. Maharaj Parikshit experienced it, and Sudama exemplified it in a very, very special way. Now, some of you live in the United States. A lot of you don't. But one of the things that we're going to be doing in the United States, it's an annual event, is in Gitanagari, which is a farm in mid-Pennsylvania. on our Memorial Weekend, like those of you from China, it's like a national holiday type of event where people don't have to go to work. So we have a gathering, and the one coming up, each one has a theme, and I've thought about this for quite some time. The theme for this one coming up is Say Yes to Krishna. So I'm going to be speaking about Sudama in one of my lectures in Say Yes to Krishna, because that's what Sudama did. Whatever his circumstance was, it was say yes to Krishna. Here's Prabhupada speaking. Prabhupada commenting on this subject matter, Vishana and Vishesha Gya, in Krishna book, for the Western audience. One's mind can be peaceful only when simply thinks of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. This does not mean that one has to be a great scholar. One simply has to understand that Krishna, the absolute truth, is all-pervasive by his localized aspect of Paramatma. If only one can think that Krishna, as Paramatma, is everywhere, even within the atom, then he can be perfect in thinking, feeling, and willing functions of his mind. The mind caused lots of disturbances. Some of you are nodding yes. And even if you're not nodding yes, inside it's... I've been receiving many letters that I haven't read and write back to the people. I'm in the midst of Dwaraka Yatra. Write to me again after it's over, please. I don't have time. I read one of them. It was just, my mind is distressed because of this and that and the other thing. What should I do, Guru Maharaj? I'm going to start sending this paragraph. If one can only think that Krishna, as Paramatma, is everywhere within the atom, even within the atom, then one can perfect the thinking, feeling, and willing functions of his mind. The perfect devotee does not see the material world as it appears to the material eyes, for he sees everywhere the presence of his worshipable Lord in his Paramatma feature. It's say yes to Krishna, say yes to Krishna, say yes to Krishna. You do practical, you strengthen your relationship with him and so on. And so it's say yes to Krishna and find out by that saying yes to Krishna with a mind that's now clear instead of muddled, what is it that Krishna would like of me? How to best serve Krishna in this circumstance? The next verse that he speaks before Shukadeva Goswami starts to speak, the whole rest of the world can go wherever it goes. In Canto 2, Chapter 7, similarly about this, if the senses are meant to be engaged in service to the Supreme Lord, if not, they're useless, basically. There's a whole series of verses like that. What's the use of the senses? What's the use of legs that go walk to the temple? The head that doesn't bow down before the deity in the temple? The hands that do not cleanse the temple? What's the use? Waste of time. So Maharaj Parikshit wants to be immersed in the process of devotional service by the mercy of the personality of Godhead. So, of course, the Bhagavatam is being narrated by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, but it's being re-narrated by Sutta Goswami to the sages. So Sutta Goswami here speaks of Maharaj Parikshit here asking this nice question, appreciating the quality of the question, and he addresses him as Vishnu Rata. Vishnu Rata means he was given life. His life was protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishnu Rata. So Shukadeva Goswami starts speaking about Sudama and refers to him in the same way as the question previously. He was the best of the knower of the Vedas. Very learned. It was just like a bookworm. He's just, because of the purity of his heart, the clarity of his mind, and the deep attachment for Krishna, he could understand the conclusions of the scriptures perfectly. The best of the knowers of the Vedas. And Sudama is being described as having no attraction at all for material enjoyment. And again, these are the results of devotion to Krishna. Vasudeva Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha. He had both. Jnana and Vairagya as the fruit or byproduct of his devotion to Krishna. Not independently one or the other, but the byproduct or fruit supported by the basis of his characteristics, his principal characteristics. The support of it was his unflinching devotion to Krishna. Now Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a very nice point in this relation. That is, because he had full devotion to Krishna, he had full knowledge of the reality of this world. And one of the realities of this world that most people don't even begin to consider is each of us is destined to a certain amount of happiness. And each of us is destined to a certain amount of distress. Largely, material life is meant to increase one and diminish the other. Instead of saying yes to Krishna, just accepting what is coming your way due to what's back there, the past activities. Now I'm meeting the fruits of my past activities, and I'm not going to deviate my mind one fraction of an inch from Krishna. I'm going to say yes to Krishna and accept the circumstance of life. Not just que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. Not just flaky, but devotional. Acting with each circumstance, next circumstance, next circumstance, according to Krishna's indication. So this was Sudama's qualification, and he lived externally as a result without, apparently, in poverty or without ample foodstuff and clothing and so forth. And next is described his wife, who she was just of the same quality as her husband. In fact, Vishwanath says she was even more qualified than her husband, because whatever food came, she was considering how to make an arrangement so my husband can have this food. So her quality was like her husband's, devoted to Krishna, full of knowledge, and very detached in the matter of eating, in the matter of possessions, in the matter of things that generally people consider to be standards of, reasonable standards of happiness, contentment. She was at the same standard as her husband. And then she's quoted by Shukadeva Goswami as speaking to her husband, and very expertly, like a Brahmani can do, she gave reasons why Sudama should do what Sudama didn't want to do. Husbands know how wives can do this. Even those that aren't married see how this can happen. And it's not just blaming the better half portion of a family. It's just her consideration was the welfare of her husband. And she knew the quality of her husband, so she basically checkmated anything not a devotee. Well, you're a Brahmana. But, I'm by Brahmana by birth, but not by qualification. And, she just, defeats all of whatever the thing, because he has this qualification of being a devotee, which is at the basis and support of everything else. And as a devotee, he's very humble. So he's shy or afraid or ashamed to go ask for Krishna other than pure devotion, because he knows the value of pure devotion. He knows the illusory happiness and actual misery of having something and then feeling proud that, I have something, and being the enjoyer of that something. It's just, he was very clear about it. He wasn't mediocre about it. He was very clear about it. She knew that nature of his. And according to the text of the chapter 80, she didn't just say it once. Husbands know this one too. She would not nag, but she from time to time would encourage him. So he understood this is a need that my wife is feeling out of her affection for me. She feels I need something. And Krishna has more than something, and he's affectionate to his devotee, and he's very affectionate to the Brahmanas. And she wants me to not have my present condition. So with a sigh, he reluctantly consented to go on this mission. And it took us 2 hours by car to get here, maybe a little bit longer by bus. And it's a long walk. So before beginning the journey, he observed the etiquette that we must give a gift. So there wasn't even anything in the house to give as a gift. She had to go to a neighbor and ask a neighbor for some flat rice. And you see up by the altar on the temple, they have little bags of flat rice. You give a little donation to the deity and they'll give you a little bag of flat rice. That's their Mahaprasad. Quality-wise, not high quality, but that's all they had. So his wife put it in a cloth, tied the ends of the cloth to make it like a bag, and the classic painting of Sudama heading to visit Krishna is with this over his shoulder little bag of flat rice. Well, as he was approaching Dwaraka, Krishna saw him coming, and even before he reached the place where Krishna was seated, Krishna rose, came down the number of steps from his elevated seat, and he embraced him and immediately brought Sudama to the place where he was sitting and began worshiping him. And there's detailed description of, it wasn't just said some nice words and gave him some water. He worshipped him like one worships a deity. And because he was fatigued, Rukmini was fanning him with a chamara. This is, in one sense, it's an ordinary pastime. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, but he's behaving like a person to show example. In this case, it's obviously not just showing an example. It's his affection and love for Sudama. He's showing it appropriate for his position as a Brahmana, him as a Kshatriya, in that sense worldly. But the exchange of love between them, from Krishna to Sudama and Sudama to Krishna, is a picture of overwhelming love of a particular kind. deep, deep friends. The fact that Sudama was in clothing that was literally rags and torn and tattered, not unclean because he was a Brahmana, it was clean, but just disheveled. And the all-opulent in Dwaraka Krishna didn't take that into consideration at all because of the love and devotion of Sudama and his position of being a Brahmana. So I have a big arrow in a box saying important with this next topic, so I'm going to take a few moments. Krishna begins speaking with Sudama. My dear Brahmana, you know very well the ways of Dharma. He's speaking of their time together as students. It's the school of Sandipani Muni. You know very well the ways of Dharma. After you offered the gift of remuneration to our guru and returned home from his school, did you marry a compatible wife or not? Just, how's it going? How's life treating you since we were in schoolmates together so many years ago? Because he's dressed in such a manner, it looks like he's renounced. Even though you are mostly involved in household affairs, your mind is not affected by material desires. O learned one, you do not take pleasure in pursuit of material wealth. You don't have it, and you're not chasing after it. Having renounced all material propensities which spring from the Supreme Lord's illusory energy, some people execute worldly duties with their minds undisturbed by material desires, like you. Such unattached persons haven't the least desire to accumulate wealth and prosperity for sense gratification. But, now this is the rest of us here, unlike Sudama, of us that in household life accumulate wealth because we don't want people to think badly about Krishna and Krishna Bhakti. We want them to think nicely, so we live a life in detachment. Anyway, Krishna is speaking. There's some that are truly detached that are like that. And that seems to be a theme that goes through this. There's different, for a householder, there's different kinds of detachment. One is like the Sudama kind, another is like the Prahlad Maharaj kind, where there is opulence but not attachment to the opulence. Now this is in the life of pure devotion to Krishna. Such a thing can exist. Both categories, Krishna is indicating, both categories of ideal householders are to be considered perfect followers of me. And he's saying essentially that Krishna also has so much opulence but is detached from it. So they're followers of him in that sense. So I'm going to go away from the Bhagavatam description for a moment, and we'll come back. We'll go to Gopal Champu. Gopal Champu is a writing by Jiva Goswami describing Krishna's pastimes. and this pastime is there in Gopal Champu, of Krishna's education. So when Krishna came to Mathura and killed Kamsa, and then was reunited with Vasudeva and Devaki, the selection of Sandipani Muni as his guru, what was the criterion for selecting him, is described. So after Krishna had become now situated in Mathura, Rohini, mother of Balaram, she also came to Mathura, and she saw the situation. So Rohini has this unique position of she sees both Braja Lila and Mathura Lila. And she sees in this Mathura position, the Yadus are feeling possessive of Krishna. He's our son. He's our family member. Rohini knows very well. So she's feeling a little disturbed because she has great affection for Mother Yashoda, and she knows what Mother Yashoda is feeling, and she sees these arrangements being made for Krishna's Upanayana ceremony, his sacred thread ceremony, and she's thinking, well, the Brijbasis should be invited. Gopal Champu. She makes some remark like that. You're going to invite everybody. You're going to invite the Brijbasis, and she gets insulted, saying, "Oh, you're just so attached to the yogurt and dairy products from Vrindavan." Just like dismissing her. So she remains quiet. But Krishna also feels great affection for the residents of Dwaraka, of Vrindavan. So he makes an arrangement through Sudama the florist, because Sudama the florist used to go to Vrindavan and gather flowers. That's where he saw Krishna even before Krishna came to Mathura. So Sudama the florist carried a message to Nanda Maharaj from Krishna, saying, very soon I'm going to have the sacred thread ceremony. I have this request, please consider. The other cowherd boys, can they also, on the same day, at the same time as I'm going to have my ceremony, have their ceremony? And they can also receive their sacred thread, and then it'll be the perfect ceremony. And it will be incomplete without that. So Krishna's thinking of the Brijbasis, even he's in Mathura. He hasn't forgotten them. After the ceremony is completed, according to Gopal Champu, it wasn't just Vasudeva and Devaki who considered the teachers and the circumstance. Krishna and Balaram were considering and discussing together. Well, the obvious suggestion would be the most qualified teachers. But those most qualified teachers, they understand us as the personality of God, and they're not going to want to become teachers. So we need somebody that's not doesn't know who I am. Gopal Champu. So they consider there's a Brahmana from Kashi, now in Prabhandar, who he's a worshipper of Lord Shiva. He doesn't really know Krishna Bhakti, but he's very qualified, vastly learned. He will be a very good teacher for us. And another good thing is he's at a distance. So people where we are here, because we just killed Kamsa and the wrestlers, and there's going to be enmity towards the Yadu clan. So we should go somewhere where nobody knows even that we've gone, what to speak of where we've gone. So it should be an incognito affair. So that's good. We can just go at a distance and nobody even know. And when we get there, we also shouldn't say who we are, because word spreads. And because we've taken the vows of brahmachari until our education is completed, we won't go in a chariot or anything. We'll go by foot. So all the way from Mathura to this place, they traveled. And when they came before their teacher, Sandipani, they did what is traditional for the one who wishes to become a student of the teacher. They brought some wood in their hand and offered them their services. We'll do any menial service that you like. And he then indicated, well, what's your family? Where do you hail from? And they gave an indirect answer. You can know me as the black one and he's the white one. Or I'm the white one, he's the black one. And we're for some family that's something indirect. So Sandipani Muni agreed to accept them as students, Gopal Champu. And he said, but you appear to be, you've indicated you're from some, a person of someone from the Yadu dynasty, or the sons of someone from the Yadu dynasty, who's a real gem of a person. Okay, well you're from Kshatriya birth, but you're going to have to do begging for alms on behalf of the Guru, just like as if you were a Brahmana. It's because that's what students in the Gurukul do. And they were very happy to do that. They began their instruction, and as we've heard, in 64 days they mastered everything. In Krishna book, Prabhupada describes they mastered the 64 arts, but it's also described, all the different portions of the Vedas. Whew. Even to read everything in 64 days. But they mastered everything in 64 days. Gopal Champu describes every evening of those 64 days, Krishna and Balaram would be lying by each other's side before falling asleep, talking about Vrindavan. And Krishna speaking about the happiness with the Gopas, and Krishna speaking about their activities with Mother Jasoda and Nanda Maharaj and Rohini, and Krishna's feeling separation. Krishna knows that they're feeling separation because they're in his heart. His thoughts go to them. Now we're back to Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna is speaking with Sudama. He's going to narrate their time together, but before speaking about their time together with Sandipani Muni, he's going to speak some very important verses, actually, about the importance of Guru, the relationship between disciple and Guru, the indebtedness the disciple has to Guru, the proper regard the disciple should have for Guru, and all that very nice, not just etiquette points, but foundational understandings of why Krishna wanted to go to school. He wanted to show by example. He doesn't need to go to school. He's the personality of Godhead. He wants to show by example when one must receive knowledge from a qualified person. Two of these verses are verses that we already referred to on the second day of our yatra. Text 34 of chapter 80. Starting with text 31. My dear Brahmana, do you remember how we lived together in our spiritual master's school? When a twice-born student has learned from his guru all that is to be learned, he can enjoy spiritual life, which lies beyond all ignorance, meaning without going beyond all ignorance. You live in ignorance. And so the indebtedness is for being provided the means to go beyond ignorance and enter into spiritual life. Commonly, education is seen as a different way. You learn stuff so that when you, in your mature stage of material life, you can be a material enjoyer adequately. And that's what parents, wholesome parents these days really want: good education for their kids so they can prosper materially after their education is over. Not enter into spiritual life and really fulfill the mission of human life because they don't even know. It's quite sad. My dear friend, he who gives a person his physical birth is his first spiritual master, mother, father. He who initiates him as a twice-born Brahmana and engages him in religious duties is indeed more directly his spiritual master, but the person who bestows transcendental knowledge upon the members of all spiritual orders of society is one's ultimate spiritual master. Indeed, he is as good as my own self. It's an often quoted verse. 33. Certainly, O Brahmana, of all the followers of Varnashram system, those who take advantage of the words I speak in my form as the spiritual master and thus easily cross over the ocean of material existence best understand their own true welfare. In other words, you can't understand your own true welfare without having received it from one who has it. And then comes the one that we spoke of on the 4th. I, speaking as the personality of Godhead, I, the soul of all beings, am not as satisfied by ritual worship, ija, Brahminical initiation, penances, or self-discipline as I am by faithful service rendered to one's spiritual master. And so he goes on several verses about, because this was their relationship, they both served Sandipani Muni together. So he's expressing I, as the personality of God, beyond all the obstacles of material existence, and otherwise one cannot. Then he starts remembering a very important incident. A very important incident was the wife of Sandipani Muni requested the two boys, Sudama and Krishna, to gather wood for the yagya, the fire. So they went, and unseasonally, in the winter, there was a big storm. Big downpours of rain and torrential winds. So they took shelter under a big tree, and it just kept going, and the night fell. So there they were, no street lights, no assistive light on their cell phone, complete darkness. The sky was without moonlight and sunlight because it was a stormy night. So they just sat huddled together underneath a large tree and enjoyed one another's company. Sandipani Muni saw the storm. He was very concerned about their welfare. And so, first thing as the sun rose in the morning, the rain had stopped, they went searching and found the boys. And when he found the boys, Sandipani Muni said, normally one considers the body as the place of comfort and the place of happiness and enjoyment. But you two boys, you've set aside all of those considerations simply for service to me, your spiritual master. I'm feeling very indebted to you and very satisfied. Then he goes on to say, actually, it's the duty of the disciple unto the spiritual master to do like that, to sacrifice whatever of the body or the mind for the pleasure of the spiritual master. You boys are first class, and I'm very satisfied with you. And Krishna, now that you've learned all of the Vedic knowledge, may you not forget it, may it stay with you. May you never lose this mentality and spirit toward the spiritual master, so that the meaning of the Vedas and the meaning of the mantras will be with you. It's like giving them a blessing, Sudama and Krishna. And then, using that as one example, Krishna said, we had many such experiences together. And we found great happiness. So this is an important lesson in spiritual life. It's many ways of saying the same thing. Some of them are poetically very beautiful. The distress that one experiences in the course of devotional service is a source of happiness for the devotee, when that inconvenience is experienced for the satisfaction of the person one is serving. Prabhupada's standard example is that of a mother with her baby. The mother endures so much. Kids don't even know what mothers have to go through. But for them, it's happiness because of the affection they feel for their child. And in a similar way, that's the nature of love, that for the spiritual master, the representative of Krishna, undergoing whatever the difficulty, in order to serve the order of the spiritual masters, is one's life and soul. There's a very nice story. I'll try to make it quick. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, when he was still a brahmachari, Ganesham, was part of the library party. Prabhupada wanted his books to be placed in libraries at universities. And after they finished covering all the universities in the US and Canada, they went to Australia, New Zealand. And then they started going through Europe, and after they did Western Europe, they went to Eastern Europe, and Ganesham, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, was in a black body, and there weren't black-bodied people in communist countries. And he went to communist countries visiting professors selling books, and it's against the law. And he was risking his life. And there was a circumstance that developed, it's kind of comical, but he continued to risk his life, even when being chased by the police, to go to an office of a professor and sell him a set of Bhagavatams. And crying. You're risking your life. As I have done for my Guru Maharaj, you're risking your life to carry out the order of the spiritual master. And there's so many such examples. So many such examples. Some of you from America, you know Tamahar Prabhu. I don't think he'll mind me telling this. When he became a devotee, he was already married. And one of the services that he did, as all of us did, is he engaged in book distribution. So one time, with his wife, they were in a parking lot somewhere in the Washington, D.C. area, and somebody came up to him and put a gun in his chest and said, "Give me your money." And he said, I had $62, and so I just reached in my pocket and gave him $62 and said, "You've got more. Give me the rest, whatever you have." And he said, "I don't have more." And the man pulled the trigger, but the gun didn't fire. And he looked at his gun and said, "It worked yesterday." And he opened up, and the cartridge was full. It just somehow it didn't fire. So Tamahar took the opportunity to change the subject a little bit and said, why would you risk your life killing somebody for some money? Well, I'm a drug addict and got to get some money, and I don't want to leave any witnesses behind that I stole their money, so I was going to kill you. Then wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have a drug habit? And we can help you get free from your drug habit. This is one of the things that chanting Hare Krishna, and told him about chanting Hare Krishna. Gave him an invitation to the temple. His friend came along in a car and said, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing? Get in the car, let's go." And off they went. Now, it may not be so extreme that your life is risked, but you give your life, and you're giving your life. You give your life, body, mind, words, and soul, to the service of the spiritual master, whatever your ashram may be. He was a householder in a tough neighborhood. Who can say what the next step is going to bring? But let that next step, and then the next step, and the next step be in the service of Krishna, under the guidance of the spiritual master, and your life is perfect. And those inconveniences are considered happinesses, because it's for the service of Krishna. Krishna changes the subject and says, "Have you brought me a gift, my old friend?" Because he was hiding this chipped rice behind his back in a bag, and Krishna reached behind his back and grabbed the bag and started eating the chipped rice from the bag. And Sudama was thinking, oh no, the all-opulent Krishna's taking this practically inedible flat rice. Rukmini checked his hand when he wanted to take a second morsel. And there's different explanations of why she did so. One is, it's not fit for you, but that's not so devotional. The other is, how will you repay your devotee? He's offered this with such love. Although you're the all-opulent Supreme Lord, how are you going to repay him? The next morning, the parting conversation between Sudama and Krishna is described. And Sudama starts to contemplate his exchange with Krishna. This is very sweet. He speaks in such a way that he's thinking of himself as a Brahmana.